Both Sides of the Veil. A Personal Experience. By Anne Manning Robbins. Published in 1909. To Augustus Pearl Martin, whose life on earth exemplified to the author, during an association of 8 short years, many noble and beautiful qualities of soul, and whose seeming continued existence, on the other side of the veil, has inspired new faith in the reality of that other life. This book is reverently dedicated. The following letter from Professor William James was addressed to the publishers.
The manuscript which this accompanies and which I recommend hereby to your attention is from a companion of mine in Psychical Research, who, from a state of doubt, has won through to a faith in human survival in a spiritual order which continues the visible order. It is a genuine record of moral and religious experience, profoundly earnest and calculated, I should think, to interest and impress readers who desire to know adequately what deeper significances our life may hold in store. Truly yours, William James.
All names and initials used in this book are genuine. In every instance deemed advisable, the necessary permission has been obtained. Introduction. F. W. H. Myers says,
"We receive life and knowledge, which it is our business to develop into love and wisdom and joy."
William James says,
The whole subject of immortal life has its prime roots in personal feeling. There are individuals with a real passion for the matter, men and women for whom a life hereafter is a pungent craving, and the thought of it an obsession, and in whom keenness of interest has bred an insight into the relations of the subject that no one, less penetrated with the mystery of it, can attain. Some of these people are known to me. They are not official personages, they do not speak as the scribes, but as having direct authority. And surely if anywhere a prophet clad in goatskins and not a uniformed official should be called to give inspiration, assurance, and instruction, it would seem to be here on such a theme.
The business of life, as concisely stated by Myers, I have been, and still am endeavoring to carry on. And I find it a business which I shall wish to pursue to the day of my death, and quite possibly thereafter. I offer both quotations as justification, if justification be needed, for the publication of the present volume. My real authority, however, must be, not what others have thought and said, with all due respect for the writers quoted, and with gratitude for the expression of the ages inextricably woven into the literature of our own generation, but the authority of deep conviction, of actual experience, of ever-widening vision, of increasing happiness, of growing power, and the belief that these things are for all who will seek. There is nothing more patent to the observer and the thinker than the differences in capacity with which men are born. Let that fact be explained as it may, or not explained at all, it has always seemed to me unreasonable to complain of the condition in which one finds oneself when awakening to consciousness in early life. For whoever will make use of his God-given faculties, whether he be a savage of the lowest type or an Eastern sage, whether he occupy a plane but little removed from the animal or have back of him ages of inherited thought, may make that degree of progress in his life, between birth and the grave, which shall be to him a satisfaction, which shall bring to him the good which he craves. To this end it is not necessary to understand the whole scheme of creation, or to be able to say positively that such and such things are so. But what seems to be true to a person who clarifies his brain and purifies his heart, and then looks and listens, is generally a safe guide for that person. In fact, it is often the person who appears to the casual observer to have no religion at all, because it cannot be expressed by, or comprised in, any creed or dogma, who is most likely to have a religion of his own. Sincere, deep, vital, and soul-saving. By many a system of philosophy, and through many a religious creed, the human soul has continued its search after self-knowledge and God-knowledge. Yet each one, in his own generation, must begin as a little child, to find out for himself the relation between himself and his Maker, must make the knowledge his individual possession, as if no one had ever lived and talked before. It does not appear that one is pushed on to acquire knowledge, pushed on to master the lessons of life, pushed on to reap the profit of his experience, against his will. But from the moment that the desire makes itself felt in the soul, from that moment, opportunities come. It is quite plain that opportunities come to him who deserves them, to him who is ready for them, to him who is able to seize them. And what is opportunity? And what do we mean by the word? Analyzed, it means the appearance, before our eyes, of an opening in the black wall of fate about us, through which we may express ourselves, our talents, our souls, in some larger way than we have hitherto done. But the soul is its own teacher. It is not necessary for it to be here or there in order that it may learn. It may acquire knowledge wherever it chances to be, by revolving in the mind whatever is suggested by its particular environment or whatever wells up from within. Unforeseen events seem to determine for us a course in life which proves, in the end, far better than anything we could possibly have planned, had the choice been absolutely in our own hands. While we are free to do as we wish, within certain limits, there are boundaries beyond which we cannot go. This shaping of events points to eternal law, to divine guidance, to an overruling providence which, while great enough to control the stars in their orbits, also enters each individual life. I disclaim the slightest pretense to science, yet I understand that anyone who observes facts carefully and records them truthfully, whether those facts be in the physical, mental, or spiritual realm of being, is adding his mite to the accumulations of science. I have no scheme of philosophy to offer, but only such bits of philosophic thought as have filtered through my own brain, and shown themselves effective for good in my own life. I wish to record here only the thoughts and experiences which are, and have become, my own. Whatever the origin of the thoughts, whether forced out of me by the intensity of misery, or dropped into my heart by an angel, they now belong to me. It is as if I had found myself drowning, as if absolutely nothing which I could grasp were within sight or within reach. As if, realizing my danger, I had, as the only means of saving myself, suddenly disappeared from the material and become pure ether, thus finding myself able, through the inherent power of my own nature, to rise out of the blackness of the engulfing waves, to float above all danger, or to land, as I choose, on solid ground. The serious author must deliberate most carefully, before committing to the cold type that which cannot be unsaid or taken back. I can only offer the present volume, in the spirit of the greatest humility, yet there is something within me which is insistent upon expression. This something within me has been leading me through varied phases of life, through doubt and mental darkness, through disappointment of hopes, through loss of beloved friends, and lo, life's pathway has suddenly opened upon a bright and luminous field. At a little distance ahead of me, in this same bright field, there appears a veil. Written across this veil is the word death, and while the path, which I descry in advance, grows more beautiful as it approaches that veil, beyond it, the brightness is yet more dazzling. So that, with the light on this side and the still greater light on that, the veil itself is almost transparent. From childhood in a country town, where the Orthodox Church gathered within its fold all young eager spirits like my own, engrafting upon them its creed and dedicating them to its service, to a present freedom of soul, which, for itself, fits all things into the scheme of the everlasting goodness of God, which looks with admiration, wonder, and reverence, but no fear, upon the mysteries of the universe, which realizes the presence, the sympathy, and the helpfulness of friends, called dead, which responds to the invisible life palpitating all about and receives energy therefrom. Of this pathway and this transition, I would speak. It may be said that this is the philosophy of self-development merely, and that all such philosophy is as old as the hills. So be it. I will utter my little word too. If to the psychologist my logic seem crude, and to the litterateur my language inadequate, my utterance will not have been in vain, if haply its message meet the need of some human heart. Part 1: Personal Experience and Growth of Faith. Preliminary. Since the early spring of 1881, to the time of publication, I have resided in the city of Boston. My interest in spiritism, and what is known as psychical research, dates from about that time. My opportunities have been unusual, and my experience unique in some respects. And for that reason, I feel that I ought not to withhold the experience from those who are seekers in the same field with myself, or from others in whom it may awaken an interest. I heartily wish that I might give my message dissociated from myself. Considering, however, the peculiar nature of my subject, I find that my personality must be wholly sacrificed to the object for which I write. My search after spiritual truth and the material circumstances of my life have been so closely interwoven that I cannot speak of the former without touching upon the latter. In fact, it is the close association and interdependence of the material and the spiritual which I wish to make prominent in this brief narrative. And were it not for that relation, I should not assume that the outward affairs of an ordinary routine life could have the slightest interest for anyone. In order to make clear the different phases in the development of my faith, I shall be obliged to go back a few years previous to 1881 and speak briefly of my early religious experience.